ego, the identity of the ego, so often is like, oh man, a leader, oh, that's about me. And it's about me being in charge. And to me, that is so the opposite of what leadership really is. Um, in fact, I would argue that that I don't know that I could authentically speak at all about my personal leadership. I think I would have to let you personally tell me about my leadership, right? So for me, that's what I would have to say. If I were to speak completely honest, I don't know that I can personally identify any aspect of my leadership in which I'm not projecting something and then trying to affirm that that is leadership. Um, I think that real leadership shows up in the listening that a community has of an individual, right? And so if you look at that, if we look at leadership through that lens, and then we look at the people's lives that we're impacting, family, friends, community, businesses, that becomes leadership. You know, that the impact that you have that goes beyond that identity, and the way that it influences others. That's a much better word. Influencers, right? The way that it influences others to take action towards what really matters the most to them. So that, to me, I think is if I had to define leadership, that would be the best definition that I could give. And then we look at like transformation, and I think transformation is this interesting paradox too, because when we start talking about transformation, we instantly assume that there's something there for us to transform, which we know is a projection, right? The idea of, oh, there's this thing that I need to go out there and transform, is to begin to play the game of and so eloquently said earlier in a video that I shared, um, a step into our projection, a step into the projection of there being some sort of external fulfillment. And so people say, well, Mike, well, hold on, wait a minute. What you're sharing here is very interesting. It's very paradoxical, because what you're saying is you're saying, that transformation is a paradox, that the idea of transformation is to go out there and change something. However, there's nothing for us to change because we're already perfect, whole, and complete. How can that be? What the hell do you mean when you say transformation? You guys picking up what I'm putting down? Like, in other words, what I'm saying is there is this weird paradox around transformation, which is like you go out there to step into, transform something, but everything's perfect, whole, and complete the way that it is. So, what am I actually transforming? Um, so it brings me back to my favorite symbol, which is the yin yang, right? The yin yang. Is it yang? Is it yin? Is it yang? I don't know, and I don't think we'll ever really know. Man, I'm just kidding. Somebody out there is like, oh, we definitely know. Let me. We're gonna look at that at Google, right? No, but seriously, if you think about things, there's this dual perspective, and so part of the journey of transformation is, depending on where you're standing, is either one, being out and in your head, or engaged in something and realizing that it's creating stress and overwhelm to the point where it's not worth the engagement, right? And then letting go of that and returning back to the present moment, versus being in the present moment, full, perfect, and complete, and then choosing of your own free will to collapse it with some sort of intention, some sort of action. So typically, when we think about the yin yang, we think about the two sides of things, and those are the two sides. But there's this system in between. There's that balance, the path of least resistance. That path of least resistance is looking at our business and saying, there's a system that I can address my frustration with. That my role as the entrepreneur, my transformational leadership in the domain of my business or in the domain of my relationship, and we'll get into relationships in a minute, my transformation to transformational leadership, in the domain of your business, in domain of business entirely, is looking at saying, okay, well, when I experience that fear, frustration, challenge, or that want, need, and desire, rather than trying to immediately address it internally, yes, we want to kind of get ourselves out of that state of being overwhelmed, or however that may look, but then getting into an action, and an action that's going to produce a compounded effect of building a system. So it's almost like we begin to see that systems can be a solution to the journey of transformation and the journey of achievement. Because now we're building something, we're transforming our state of being and creating a system. And we're achieving something by creating a system that that compounds, multiplies the effect of what we're doing. And if you begin to understand that, you begin to see what we're doing here at True Living, right? What we're doing is we're creating a system that impacts other people, that allows for them to live powerfully and accomplish what it is that matters most to them. And our context as facilitators, as entrepreneurs, as system builders, is to build a system that serves us, serves the people that are going through the process, and helps us transform those fears, frustrations, and challenges, wants, needs, and desires into a system. Kind of cool, right? So leadership then becomes picking up the hammer and building the system. You know, you begin to see this place where the idea of the leader, and the practical actions and the selflessness kind of merge together. Um, so in order for us to really begin to master that, we've got to look at who we are personally. You know, what are the things that are going to prevent us from focusing on the system? Uh, and 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 part of that is our identity, and we've talked about our identity in the past, but today we're going to kind of get into it a little bit more, because as leaders, we've got to be really, like, the distance between your trigger and your need to be able to turn that trigger back around. In other words, the moment you're triggered, right? You're now entering into, there becomes something that now we can say needs to be transformed, right? And the further and longer we allow ourselves to go down that path, the more we have space to recognize how far we've gone from that path. So I guess what I'm saying is so you're in the present moment, right? And if you recognize your trigger, that catches you out of the present moment quicker and quicker and quicker, you're able to get back here. Or said differently, the times in which you're playing a game, right? The times in which you're playing a game, you step up to bat, you're holding the bat, and they throw the ball. You're not thinking about swinging. You're not thinking about your fears, your frustrations, your challenges. You're just in action. And sometimes, if you swing and you miss the ball, you can get upset. Now there's something to transform in our distinction. Oh, I'm all upset. But how you've transformed that is by getting back into the state of being like back in the game. And now you've officially gone through that entire cycle of transformation, which, being back in the game, allows you to swing the bat again and miss or hit it, right? You hit it, you're like, yes, that was really great. I got that journey of achievement, that ability to hit the ball, because I made something happen, and that was fulfilling. But I also could have swung and missed, and since both are paradoxical, to be attached to either one, to the degree in which we become miserable, is silly. So I wanted to begin to paint this picture for you guys, because as we get into identifying your fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires as an entrepreneur, as a business builder, as a systemizer, we need to really understand them, because that allows us to catch ourselves quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. And the more we're able to catch ourselves quicker and quicker and quicker, the more we're here, the more we're in a beautiful, natural embodiment state. The more we're embodied, the more we're grateful, the more we're loving, the more we are present to the natural state of being, comfortable being uncomfortable. So fears, frustrations, and challenges, wants, needs, and desires. And they're the bucket. And they're the bucket because we said they're the bucket, right? Because it emerges in language. And the moment that you label something, you can sidestep it. And you can see now that in this conversation, we've been talking about things. Now, have we actually accomplished anything? Not yet. We've talked, we've entered into the journey of transformation linguistically, but we haven't actually moved anything. In other words, we haven't actually made the needle move yet, have we? So you can see that we're still in the journey of transformation, and we're putting context to things, and we're taking areas of the brain and we're connecting them together, and the circuits are going off, right? Oh, I understand leadership a little bit differently. Oh, and I understand, oh, that's interesting. Mike's got a game there. Okay. Oh, so you see how we're creating context here? Well, now that we've got all those areas of our life kind of rallied into this conversation, we then look and we say, the game of business is a game, just like baseball. The way that we keep tracks of the score is with money. And you can play any position that you want. You just can't play all the positions. And so no matter what level you're an entrepreneur. You're fully responsible for the position that you choose to play. And the way that you win is by having everybody play at their position, the one that they're best at. And what's interesting about building a business is that it's almost like a bunch of people are in the middle of the field and they're like, hey, so let's have some fun. And then you're like, okay, well, how do we want to have fun? And somebody's like, hey, I got this ball, you want to catch it? And somebody's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I won't know until you throw it at me. So you throw it at them and they catch it and they're like, oh, that was kind of cool. Here's the ball back, and all of a sudden, oh, man. And then somebody was like, hey, we'll call that throwing, and then somebody was like, well, can you throw the ball to me? And now all of a sudden you've got this game of baseball that's showing up, and it's, well, hold on, baseball? Oh yeah, but now we're back in that label. Oh, business? Oh, I've got to go to work, honey. I got to go to work. I told my kids the other day, they said, Dad, I want to work. And I said, honey, listen, that's great. She said, Dad, can I work for you? And I said, sure, of course. Well, she will. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe when she gets a little bit older, right? That would be the idea to create something phenomenal to hand to the children of our children, all of our children, everybody that's on this call, right? So she goes, Dad, what will that look like? Can I work for you? And my wife was like, oh, honey, we got to go, and she's, but I want to work with Dad. No, come on, we're going to go play with your friends. She looks at me, she goes, Dad, I want to play. I said, honey, do you want to work or do you want to play? She goes, I want to work. And I said, I have a secret to tell you. Work is just what adults, no, what did I say? I said, work is just what adults call play. Or rather, one day when you grow up, you're going to call work, you're going to, wow, tell you what side I'm on. One day when you grow up, you're going to call your play work. One day when you grow up, you're going to call your play work. Let me say that again. One day when you grow up, you're going to call your play work. And she goes, oh. And then she went off and played. So like in that same way, we've got to look and we've got to take responsibility of coming to work from the sense of play. Like the reality of it is there's nobody fucking in charge of anything, like not even nobody's freaking in charge. We're all playing. We're all just playing. And then as we go through life, we have this cap that we put on ourselves. We literally put a cap on ourselves. There was a study done and they took a bunch of fleas. They put these fleas inside of a jar. Now, if you guys have ever seen a jar, this study, it's pretty phenomenal. And what they did is they took all these fleas, they put them inside of a jar, and they put the lid on the top of the jar. It's on YouTube. And the fleas would, now if you've seen a flea is the equivalent, literally, no exaggeration, of you jumping over the Empire State Building. That flea is this freaking big, and the Empire State Building is massive. And that flea can jump, it can jump over me. These little things with these massive legs, and they boom, and they just jump. I mean, you can't even see them; they're tiny, right? So they put these fleas, and they put these fleas inside of a jar, and they put the lid on top of the jar. The fleas would jump, and they jumped. And what happened was they hit their head on the top of the jar over and over and over and over and over again. And after they hit their head on the top of the jar around like 2 or 3 times, they continued to jump, but they would just narrowly miss the lid of the jar. They had learned that when you jump, that inside of this environment, there's a lid, and if you jump just below where you remember that lid, you're okay. You're not going to hit your head. Well, what happened was after 3 days, the scientists took off the lid of the jar. And what they found was the fleas continued to jump, just narrowly missing the invisible lid, which was no longer there. The fleas just jumped, and they continued to jump, and they continued to jump until they starved to death. They never thought to jump out of the jar. And not only did they never think to jump out of the jar, I mean, we're talking something that can jump the equivalence of the Empire State Building, which had now learned that there was a lid which is no longer there. Not only did they continue to jump within the jar uh, and starve to death because they never thought to jump out, but their children, which had been born in the jar, never thought to jump out of the jar. They didn't even consider that there was something more, that they could jump that far. So it becomes essential to our transformation to take a moment and have combined the understanding that transformation is a possible and available in this present moment, and that you're out of the jar. That you're like right now, you're out of the jar. That there is no one in charge. That you're playing a game, and that this is what you're choosing to play. And the rule is make money, because that's just how we define the game. Now you feel how we just went into it now? Put the idea of the lid back on. And we're going to keep score with money. Now, I'm using money because we're in a business context. But I could have said the way we're keeping track of the score is, and anything I would have said, we would have then definitively lived into. Could have been, is to take care of your children, is to live a healthy lifestyle, is to help others. We can define it however it is that we want, because it's our personal game. But there is no it here. You created it, and then you agreed to play it. And if it doesn't serve you anymore, then recreate it, because it isn't even here in the first place. It's the whole idea that there's something to transform. Enter transformational leadership. Because when you're having a conversation with someone and they're convincing you that their fears, their frustrations, their challenges, their wants, needs, and desires are real, that they can't, whatever the idea that they're projecting into that space, whatever they're trying to tell you that they need to change before the action takes place, before they swing the bat, which, trust me, is there anything that you cannot do within your sphere right now? Is it that you cannot hit the key? Is it that you cannot what? It's all that, it's the whole idea that you can't anything is a story. And that's the story that we transform. So it is, transformational leadership is being able to, from the space in which we're speaking of, from the one in which you're in, be able to guide people to it in a way in which it gives them the freedom to define their game. True living gives you the tools to define and live your fullest expression of health, joy, and success. True living, not the business. True living gives you the tools right here in the present moment. You have the tools to define and live your fullest expression of health, joy, and success, because there is no space between you and that expression, because you are the expression. So this becomes very tactical. So it's like, Mike, okay, I got it. All right, so now I'm here. I can step out of the matrix. I peeked my head just above the lid. And the trick there is to recognize when you're taking the actions that imply that there is a lid. There is no limit here. So how do we actually structure this? How do we teach our facilitators to do and to understand this and to be able to recognize this? I'm going to show you that today, because it emerges in language. And if you can catch yourself right where the pencil is hitting the paper, right? And I want you to catch yourself. See if you can catch yourself. See right now, see if you can catch a thought. It's like there's this take a look at see, it's inside of you, and you'll notice that there's this almost like this leaning. It feels like you'll notice it's a sense, it's a notion. It's like a, see if you can notice it. It's right where the pen meets the paper. And it's when you it's where you author your life. It's where you're authoring your life from. And if you just feel into that, you'll notice that there's like these like openings. It's like, and you'll feel it like increase energy. You'll almost notice that if you're just present to it, you'll notice that there's like a, and you want to just lean right into that like expansion. And that leaning into the expansion is the experience of jumping. And then you define it. And that becomes the container. And you get to hold on to that experience because you put it into a container. And then you kind of go back and forth like a dance, like yin and yang, with that container, within that container. And that becomes the journey of transformation. Internally, that's the inner game. And the outer game, those are just the actions that you take in whatever order you want to take them. And that's where the strategy comes in. That's where experience comes in. You can teach a child to walk. It takes a little time, takes some practice, takes a lot of bumps, but eventually you learned how to walk. And in that same way, you can learn how to run through a business process successfully. And once you transform yourself, the idea of needing transformation and then pursuing external fulfillment, and then realizing there is no external fulfillment in the domain of transformation, then you can let go of that game. You can no longer play in that container. You can lean into that out of the box or container experience. And then from outside, you can create a container. You can hold on to it, and you can hold on to it in the form of a system, in the form of a process. And that's how you take the present moment, create a notion that excites you, grab it with a system, with a structure, with a mentor, and take it and then bring it into a process, and then give that process to someone else. And what we're doing is we are structuring the process of exactly that. That's the gift. That's the gift. That's what we're doing. And your business is a version of that. It's a unique expression of health, joy, and success. It's a system. It's exactly what it is that we want to give to somebody. And we broke it down, and we took our love that we put into that container and we broke it down. And when it isn't working, it's not your ability to create. It's within the system that it isn't working. So it's actually now got nothing to do with you. It's now out here where we can play the game collectively on making it work. So think of it like you are creating a gift and then giving it to the world in a way in which the world can experience your gift, help you create that gift, and then pass it on to others. So the time it takes for you to walk, it's a learning curve, right? The ability to consolidate it and get right back into that over and 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 over again, like very quickly. The ability to create it linguistically and give it to somebody, the ability to keep yourself in action, that comes from being able to identify very clearly, is the intention that we're engaging in action-oriented and process-oriented? Is it actually going to change something? Is it actually going to build the car? Is it moving the ball from point A to point B? Did we swing the bat? The ball won't go somewhere. You could either throw the ball or you could hit the ball. The ball is not going to move itself. Are we moving the ball down the court, right? Are we putting it into the net? The success is to be able to identify very quickly where conversations are in the journey of transformation versus how can we translate them into the journey of achievement so that we can play the game. Because that's because when we're in the journey of achievement, when we're let me say that differently, when we're playing the game, everyone can play. It's a fun game. So that's your inner game, right? Journey of transformation, the outer game. Okay. So what I'm inviting you here is that there is a massive amount of power. There's a massive amount of leadership. There's a massive amount of transformation that comes from one, owning your internal fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires in a way in which you could recognize them, recognize the trigger of that authoring of the paper in a way in which you don't want it to go, redirecting it. And your ability to do that for yourself and your ability to do that for others so that you can play the game of build something as fast as possible. So that's why this exercise is so powerful. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to share my screen and I'm going to pull up something that we call the synergy system. Let me get my screen up here. Where is my screen? View. I don't know if you guys have ever had multiple screens going on Zoom, but it can be, you can lose yourself. Literally. All right. So let's go over here. Let's go back to this. Let's go to share screen and we're going to dive into Google Chrome. Okay. So what happens here is we've spoken about the wheel of life. Let me share. We've spoken about the wheel of life, and you see that in our model, we look at all these various areas and we say, all right, well, let's check in, health, finances, career, living environment, fun and recreation, family and friends. And we've done this before. We're not going to redo this, but that's your first getting into different areas. Again, the goal here is to recognize and own, an honest, authentic assessment, embody gratitude, and then transition right into action, right? And those massive actions, those that's what compounds us, right? But this is the one that we're going to focus on here. The situation. You see, we are defining the present moment. We often look at things as if there's a million beliefs in the world, and we can select which ones we want. There isn't a million beliefs in the world. You're just believing shit. That's a belief, right? It's just you, and you're in your own soup of how you're relating to your experience, how you're relating to your sense of truth, your notion of truth, right? It's a notion. And so what we want to do is begin to recognize that distinction of your current situation being looked at and kind of through the lens of fears, frustrations, and challenges, wants, needs, and desires. And then also looking there as the measurable indicator in which it's tangible. So it's kind of like, this is your story versus this is what's really happening. She took advantage of me is a story. She didn't pay the bill is what happened, right? There was a bill. It did not get paid. What we make that mean, transformation. And we can get lost in that. Oh, but I feel so bad because there was this money thing and blah, 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 blah. And now we're in the abyss of like, whew. And what we do is we go out there and we start entertaining all that shit, and where there's no value, just start agreeing with people. Oh, you're right. With this person's an asshole and blah, 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 blah. We get nowhere with it. And at the end of the day, the greatest outcome of that is that we transform something. Somebody has an inspired fucking idea that brings us back into some sort of action. You're like, well, wow, we really transformed that situation. Yeah. We could have just avoided that whole thing and just taken action, right? Not to say that sitting around and feeling grateful is there's extraordinary value there. And I'm not saying that feeling I'm not saying that you can't choose to be in a suffering state, but just why? I mean, you can. I don't know. It's just however you want to define the game. So what happens is there's the present moment in which we author our beliefs into, and then as we author our beliefs, we do so in language, and then we live into them. And so what we want to do is we've got to get really crystal clear, really honest, like brutally honest with ourselves over what our beliefs are. Because when you get brutally honest with yourself over what your beliefs are, you can then begin to see the places in which they're actually limiting you. And you can also begin to see why you have them there, because they're a container. You put them there. You get to operate and hold on to those beliefs, and they constitute who you are, your identity. So it's not to say that we don't, you can believe whatever you want. I'm not saying you can't believe anything. I'm just saying that that within your belief structure should be the opportunity to take responsibility for your beliefs, instead of putting responsibility for your beliefs out there, where you can't change it. Because what happens is we get people who, by the definition of their own belief, can't do anything about their beliefs, which creates a really poor situation for trying to change a belief. If I believe that my beliefs are not mine, now I'm really in trouble. If my beliefs are not mine, now I've disidentified with all belief, and now I'm subject to whatever my brain thinks, whatever's there. What a wild ride that can be. Or we could acknowledge that all of that is in language and that there's this whole other side, and then we're back to the game. So, okay. So, all right. So guys, what is your fears? What is your biggest fear? My biggest fear is blank. And what you do is you write it in here. You just get honest with yourself. You want to take this, highlight it, make sure that you're not, go over to this button here, and hit this. See how it says clip? You could either wrap it to start. When you wrap text, what it does is it goes like this. It lets us just go here, and it just lets us keep right on going, and then when we're done, it expands the cell. You could do that. Right now, the goal here is to just get it out. So either however you want to do it, you could wrap the cell, or you could just let it continue. I'll show you how that looks here. See how it kind of cuts it off? I like to do that one, but you guys could do whatever you want. But so you go through and you figure out, well, what is my biggest fear? What is your biggest fear? This is a great one. Have a conversation with somebody about it, right? After you're done. Brainstorm, get all these out. What are your biggest fears? What are your feelings around death? Other fears that I'm aware of are, one of my favorite things to do is have people fill this out before they even have a conversation with me. But then I found that that was just my ego, because then I go through and I'm like, we just transformed all your fears, frustrations, and challenges, wants, needs, and desires. You're now completely transformed. And they're like, oh my God, I feel absolutely amazing. And then I'm like, well, yeah, but that makes for a really awesome testimonial. But through this context, now you're in the mindset for you to be looking for that lid, right? And now that you're looking for that lid, now you're gonna notice that you can be on both sides of your beliefs. You'll see yourself authoring them. So my fear is my frustrations, my you'll see the words. What's frustrating about my current situation? Well, that's interesting. You got to define your current situation now. What is your current situation, right? So you're gonna go through here and you're gonna fill out this. What is your projected future? What would I like to have? What is the results? What would I see you currently have What would I see you currently have as a result of your relationship, to money? What do you currently have as a result of your relationship to energy? Right. So these are all very thought-provoking questions. I love them. And then when you're done, after you go through all these, then you're going to go back and you're going to say, okay, got it. There's my kind of conversation of transformation. What is the measurable indicator of this? My biggest fear is, can we even find that? Is there any sort of, like, other than the idea that my greatest fear is that I'm going to, or my feelings around death, my greatest fear is that I'm going to drown to death. Okay. Is there any sort of measurable indicator to that? Well, maybe you had an event, maybe you didn't. And then we're going to say, okay, great. Is this true for your ideal client, the person that you serve? Is this something that you can relate to? Because look, being able to pull somebody out of the fear, frustration, challenge, want, need, and desire that they're experiencing, for some people, you need to relate to them. Oh yeah, you know what? I understand how you can feel that way, given everything that you've been through. I didn't affirm that that's real. I said, I understand how you can feel that way. But you still have the opportunity to choose. And there's the empowerment. But if I said, you're right, men are out there to fuck you up. They're going to screw up your whole life. Now what I've done is I've collapsed my belief structure with their belief structure. And ultimately what I've done is I've been a person in their universe that agrees that their beliefs are valid. And now I've just tightened the lid on their container, right? So as facilitators, it's not to say that we can't run around with particular truths and play that game, because you're free to define the game however it is that you want. It's just that your role as a professional facilitator is to hold space for people so that they can author their life. When I say you're right, that person is an asshole. I've authored your life with my belief and affirmation, which we can do if that's the agreement. But no one's coming here saying, hey, can you tell me how to live? Okay, anyway, it's facilitation. You're facilitating their ability to author their life. Okay, so, right. So is this true for your ideal client? We want to look at this, right? I mean, speaking very like now we're going to get into business, right? So now I'm going to pull us into real tangible stuff. If you're in a service-driven business, your chances are your fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires led to your own personal journey of achievement and personal journey of transformation, which is helping you build products and services that address those fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires that you had. And that's why it's so essential for you to understand, is this an area, something that you can relate to? Because these are the beliefs, these are the emotions in which people buy. And so you want to look, your current situation, your projected future based if you don't change anything. And then this is where we really establish your desired situation. Now, the trick here is to completely be able to reject everything that you just put above here for you to be able to establish your desired situation. What do you want? Well, now what we've done is we've just anchored you in everything that you either don't want. And now the challenge is for you to get out of that anchor and really visualize what you really want. And this is where you should take a meditation. We have like a whole wardrobe of meditations, but we have a whole wardrobe of meditations and visualizations and practices that you can try on to reground yourself here. Because after you go through this exercise, none of this shit will become valuable anymore. Your fears, your frustrations, your challenges, your wants, needs, and desires. Let me say that differently. Your fears, frustrations, and challenges, you can leave them. You can leave them behind if you choose. And your wants, needs, and desires, you can have that fulfillment now and then build a system, which can be very fulfilling as the entrepreneur. Right? And then play the game of being on a team and building a system with a team, and then right. Okay, so we're back here establishing the desired situation. It's got to be a vision. Remember that the brain can't tell the difference between a vision and a memory. And so what happens is we keep trying to take our past and put it in the future. Take our past and put it in the future. So right now, if I were to ask you sincerely, if I doubled everything that you have, would you be happy? You automatically take all the frustration and the bullshit that you're dealing with now and you try to bring it into the future. and it collapses. And it would be miserable if you doubled all of your effort right now. You'd collapse. You wouldn't even want to do that. You wouldn't even want to do that. So you've actually got to be willing to have a vision that's like a 10x vision, something that's so strong that you'd be willing to sell your house, that you'd be willing to move, that you'd be willing to change every aspect of your relationship. Something that's so juicy that you're like, I'm in. I'm willing to. That's worth pursuing, and that really becomes what you can anchor your journey of achievement into. Right? Because that's something, I'll tell you, I live on a 50-acre vacation resort, right? A 50-acre vacation resort with chickens and alpacas, and I grow organic. I live in paradise. I have one of the cleanest creeks in my backyard, and I'm freaking a happy camp. I literally look out my window, guys. I'm not even joking. See if I'm kidding you. Take a look at that. There's my little exercise bike. I go for a spin while I'm selling, talking to clients and creating relationships. I look out my window and I see eagles flying up and down my creek out there. The same creek that I can go in there with my bare feet. I live in fucking paradise. Here's the thing. In one of the most beautiful areas in the world. Here's the thing. If you were to say, Mike, I need you to put in more hours, or I need you to really bunker down and do anything, I would say, my poor wife is, she's like, I want to buy an investment property. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to work more for that unless I can make it better, unless I can build a retreat center on there, or unless there's something that I really, really want. Why would I leave paradise here? So we want to make sure that we have a vision, something that we're living into that's so juicy that we're willing to let go of everything that we have now, because complacency and being comfortable is, we all like to burrow in there. And that's playing the game. How can I define that game in a way in which I'm motivated and inspired to move towards building that? And oftentimes that looks like saying, all right, well, maybe we do a visualization, we can do meditations, but it requires us getting out of this. If we're too anchored in our past memories, in our fears, frustrations, challenges, then we're never going to think about our wants, needs, and desires to the capacity that we need to get our head out of the jar enough to see that there's so much more that we can do, that we can scale true living faster, that we can scale any business faster, doesn't matter what, that we can scale our version of health, joy, and success at the next level. Which just what popped into my head is I'm going to hire a personal trainer. I'm going to make that happen. I'm going to manifest that between now and Friday. You know who it's going to be? It's going to be Mabina. Done. Right? Because I just had this vision of like me having somebody to kick my ass for exercising. Done. Right? Cool. Never thought of that. I have a background in exercise therapy, right? So it's kind of, why would I have somebody? What a great luxury. Talk about filling the other side of the, being on the other side of the spectrum now. Okay. So establishing your desired situation. This is one of my favorite coaching questions. If you and I were having a discussion 3 years from now, looking back, now we future paced, and now we're looking back, both personally and professionally, what needs to have taken place for you to be happy with your progress? If you and I were having a conversation 3 years from now, we're sitting there in the diner. Here I go, I'm creating a vision. We're sitting there in the diner, we're drinking coffee, we're talking, and I say, this has been the hands down the best 3 years of both of our lives. What just took place? Now you're coming from the future, looking at the past, and now you're creating that anchor, that GPS for where you want to go, and we're getting back there. And guys, very simple, right? All we got to do is, if we're triggered, just recognize that we're triggered, stop what we're doing, control our emotions, executive functions, right? Create that future vision, re-anchor in it, and then now, by virtue of us being anchored in that vision, we're no longer anchored in our past, and now we're thinking clearly again. So one of the things that happens with these mindset experts is they go down the bunny trail of working on mindset all the time. And what they're really doing is they're enforcing this idea that there's a deficit in the present moment. And now we're on a witch hunt to find the part of us that needs healing, which I guess you could play if that's how you want to define the game. But I'd much rather just be like healed and no longer playing that game, because I don't know that there's at least this point. I mean, I don't know that there's value. I had a friend one time. He said, I have a friend that got into personal development. Yeah, he was dealing with some hard times, and he said, I'm going to get into personal development. He never got better. You know, he never got better. He's still into personal development this day. Sounded like a cocaine addiction, you know. But anyway, so if you and I were having a discussion 3 years from now, looking back, both personally and professionally, what needs to have taken place for you to feel happy with your progress, for you to feel fulfilled, right? List 3 activities that you could do all day, every day, right? One activity in my business I would never outsource because I love it this much, right? So that becomes that notion that we want to just, do. And then that's what you hold on to. And then the rest of it, your life can be spent building systems around making sure that you can do that one thing over and over and over again. If I could give a gift to every person in the world, what would it be? And then we want to translate that into the measurable, okay? Now, once we filled this out, I'm going to kind of jump into the next section. We then want to look at, and I'm going to move this from here. We then want to look at, I guess, no, I'm feeling like this is a good place for us to stop. Whoa, let me go here and here. Okay. So once we've kind of identified the fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires that we have, it allows us to begin to hear them in the communication patterns of others. And it isn't that you can't go down those conversations. It's just that they're not ripe with productivity. So self-mastery is catching yourself and bringing yourself back to that present moment, and having the skill set and communication skills to facilitate that with others as well. Is that cool? Yeah? All right. Now, I want to answer any questions that you have. Anyone have any questions on that?
Can you actually repeat the last part you said about the self-mastery?
Sure. So self-mastery is the ability for you to communicate. Self-mastery is the ability for you to recognize the triggers, dissolve them, and so that you could stay in action over what matters to you most, and the ability to communicate that and facilitate that with others. Now, there's this weird paradox that shows up, because once you really get this, you see that you just command shit into the universe. You'll notice it's like this weird thing. It's like once you get it, then people are like, all right, so what are we gonna? Okay, I got it. What are we gonna do now? You're like, well, we're going this direction, and that's how leadership kind of shows up. So, in addition, when we talk about sales, sales is very easy. It's hanging in there while someone deals with the stuff that they're dealing with, and just having a system and something to help them take the next step. Oh, that's a fear, that's a frustration, that's a challenge. And the moment that you label it, you've actually bypassed the container, because no matter what's happening, you're really, truly, authentically kind of outside of the container to be able to label something. So when I say the container, you can instantly look at your entire state of consciousness as a container and then bypass it and step out of it, because we just created that in language. Can you guys see that? What other thoughts do you have? I'm open for anything.
The analogy of the fleas is is that kind of a parallel to our glass ceiling as humans, or is it more of what we are taught from our parents or people who raised us of achievement?
Okay. This side is what we achieve, and this side is what we're taught that we can achieve. So it's like they're almost like collapsed. So so yes. Sorry, Michael. I wish I had a better answer for you. Yes, you're on both sides of it now. But you guys can clearly see now there's two sides to it. There's the collapsing it into the container, and then there's the ability to remove the container. It's a right now phenomenon. I'm not speaking about something like, in other words, what I've done is I've brought us into it. You know, we all agreed to get into it. We were already here. It's a right now phenomenon. Look at the present moment. What are we doing? And you'll see yourself begin to define it, literally author it. What am I doing? Am I learning from like, is this about business? Like, and so what all of a sudden you'll see us start creating and defining the current situation. But we can shift that context with language as long as we're willing to come from that blank space. Watch. So you guys don't know this, but we decided to create the True Living Church. I'm just kidding. I couldn't even keep a straight face. But you feel how like all of a sudden it was like, well, hold on, and it shifted the whole context. It's like, well, wait a minute, is he preaching to me now? Right? No, I'm just kidding. This is all about your business. Actually, hold on, wait. Not anymore. Let's just watch them. This is about your family life. You'll kind of like see it like you'll see the entire present moment and the filter that we put on it shift. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Actually, what we really need, anything I say is just fucking injecting my belief into the present moment. Because you're out of the filter, you're out of the container. That is the place in which transformation lives. And here, and let's just call it here, you can create anything that you want and then take action. And you'll see now that there's just action to be had, right? It's almost like the whole idea of defining it is so we just take action. The way that we got here is because we considered this conversation about fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires. And the way in which we used language is we, through conversation, disidentified with them completely. And then we created in language a blank space in which you can see both sides of the container in which we define the present moment in. So you're actually now inside the container and outside of the container. And whatever thought you have next is the container that you'll live into. And seeing that is a seed in which you'll never forget. And it then ripples into your sleep patterns because you'll catch yourself no longer the subject of your dreams. Right? Now you author your dreams. You're like running and you're like, I'm not going to run anymore. And now I'm going to change that person from purple to blue. And, you know, because you're now willing your beliefs into your brain from this side of the state of awareness, from this side of the frontal lobe, we'll say. And this is essential because people in your life and in your business are going to try to convince you that their view on reality is it. And if you believe it, you've collapsed your belief in it, because that's what people have been doing your entire life. Your whole life, from Santa Claus to and the list just goes on. So so it's not to say that you stay here forever, but it's just to say that you have the ability to choose to author, the direction that you go. So does that make sense, Michael? Cool. You guys picking up what I'm putting down? So you'll notice that what we have is we do this thing that's called, let's call it fishing, because there is no it. When I say let's call it, remember, we author it. Mike just made it up. Let's call it, because now what I'm doing is I'm defining the moment. Mike's got to define the moment, because otherwise we just stand in this blank space. We're like, okay, well, this is directionless. What are we doing? You know, right? Let's call it fishing. And what we're doing is we are accessing components of the brain and seaming them together. And we're doing that with your life in this process here of looking at the fears, frustrations, and challenges, wants, needs, and desires, and bringing this mindset there to consider both sides, to take responsibility as being the author of them, so that you can decide to define your current situation as choosing to empower that as a notion of truth for your life, or choosing to dissolve it and create something different. And we'll do it through the context of your business, because that's what we agreed on. Or if you no longer want to keep that agreement, I'm okay with it. You can do it in the context of your personal life. Or you can own what I'm saying as true and do it in any context that you choose. You tell me. And that is being out of the container. But you notice how, like, as soon as we're there, there's like a sense of uncomfortability about it. And then it's like, well, we might as well define it. Fuck it, we'll just define it. Okay, so guys, do it in the context of your business, and go through there. Fears, frustrations, challenges. Let me assign this to you. Twee, what I'm going to do is, hold on here, situation, file, new. We're going to create a document. Copy, make a copy. And what I'll do is I'll share this with you guys so you guys could do this exercise here. All right, so do me a favor. I'm going to drop it into the chat. Go through here, fill out your fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires. Let me know if any of the spelling, I probably got to fix some of that. This is my team knows. And go through, fill it out. And then what you're going to notice is that although this conversation, we didn't get it, we got into, by the way, this is the same marketing. When it comes to marketing, you are marketing to people's fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires. We're literally saying, hey, do you experience this fear? Do you experience this frustration? Do you experience this desire? Do you want and need this? I did too. And if you want to know what I did to build a system here, this is going to help you out, right? This is my past experience. This is how I found what I did as a solution. I was dealing with this fear, this frustration, this challenge, this want, need, and desire. And that's all people are doing over and over and over and over and over again. And once you realize that, like the system that's going on there, which is required through language, oh, we've got to explain the backstory. Otherwise, you don't. If I just said car, nobody understands car. So I've got to tell you what the context of car is, because it's all codependent, right? So in other words, if I said, well, I was driving a car, oh, he's driving the car, versus buying a car, well, that's a different context, right? So now you're going to hear people when they're speaking, you're going to begin to see the formula layout, right? Let's go here, because now you guys got me into it. So here we go. We're going to go on Facebook, right? So you guys see the Facebook? All right, let's just pick anybody. We're going to go to, I don't know, True Living Tribe. Now, actually, let's go to Author 101. All right. Now, what you're going to notice here, let's see this guy, Russell Brunson. Let's see what he does. Can you guys hear this okay?
As an entrepreneur, small business owner.
Wait, what is he doing?
As an entrepreneur, small business owner, there have been times in our life that we've heard and we believe the concept that if we build it, they will come, right?
Boom. What is that?
And so because of that, we start our own businesses. We go to school, we get a degree.
What is he doing? He's giving you the backstory.
We create a course.
He's creating context for the fear, frustration, challenge.
Service, whatever your thing is, hoping that if we create the best product or the best service, that people will come knocking on our door. And then we wait. We wait for our future dream customer to come and find us. Unfortunately, it never seems like they just come and find you, do they? Now, my question for you is that your story? Is that why you're here today? You've created something amazing, something you're passionate about, something you believe in. You can't figure out how in the world do I get my dream customers to actually come to me? Or maybe you're a little bit further down the line. You've got some ads running on Facebook or Google, but you have fear, knowing that the next Google slap could happen at any time. Or maybe your ads account's going to get shut down. And you're up at night thinking and wondering, is my business actually built on a solid foundation? Hey, my name is Russell Brunson, and I'm the author of this brand new book called Traffic Secrets.
All right. Did you guys see that? Backstory. Internal desire, external desire. Hey, guys. This is my backstory. Do you recognize this fear? Do you recognize this frustration? Do you recognize this desire, this want and need? If you do, I get it. Enter product, right? Why this is so important is because if you really want to be outside of someone else being able to create inside of your head with language, you've got to be able to recognize this for yourself. Because now you're like, well, shit, all he did was just psychologically hook me. He gave me the backstory so that once he entertains, right? And this is an algorithm. This is proven stuff, right? We go through, this is what he's using right here is something called an epiphany bridge, which is the title he gave it, actually. This gentleman, he's, all he does is process people's funnels, right? So he just helps people. Russell Brunson is a funnel builder. He owns ClickFunnels. That's what we're looking at right here. That's why he has Traffic Secrets. One of the things he has is eyes on what's working at the highest level, right? And this is what he does. He literally sells people on how he sells people. So you see, he's got this entire backstory out of our 10-minute video. He just spent a minute just identifying your fears, frustrations, challenges. Because guess what? It doesn't matter what he says. If he said, I used to be that, and then I built this course, and then I licked this apple, and then whatever he says, we're hooked because we've identified fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires. We've resonated with what he's saying in language. So you got to understand that this is your direction maker. Sound good? So as you begin to identify this, you're going to see this in the marketplace, and that is what's going to help you break out of the marketing mind control game that's happening. Okay. Yes. Is that valuable, guys? That should be like a paradox shift. Should be like, holy shit. Okay, any questions? Nada? We can get nitty gritty on your businesses. You have me for another 18 minutes. So like, yeah, so like, let's look at that, right? Inside of the conversation. So now okay. So next, while I've got you here, we're going to go to the next exercise. I'm on the next exercise. Okay. So now those of you guys that have transformational business journey, now what we're going to do is once you've finalized that, now we jump into here, Google Chrome, and we're going to jump over here to my ideal client. All right. You may recognize these questions a little bit, guys. What's their age? What's their gender? What's their race? What's my ideal who's? We call them the ideal who. Who. Remember, who is an identity. My ideal client's identity, right? Who are they close to? What, right? What do they want? What do they need? What do they desire? What are their frustrations, challenges, struggles? There, now you're getting it for your ideal client. And once you go through here and you've identified all this stuff, you're then going to say, okay, great. Be as specific as possible. Fill this all in. How can you relate to this? Personally, be personal and authentic, right? You might say, geez, I just realized that my entire life I've been struggling with whatever. My entire life, it really frustrates me when systems don't work. And I found that when I go into an organization, they think their systems work, but they don't, right? It frustrates me. Right? Can you relate to this? How specifically can you / do you address this with your product or service? Right now, you don't necessarily need to have your product and service pinned down. You're just brainstorming at this stage, right? And how would you measure that outcome of this result in someone's life? In other words, if you can address this, how would that look measurable? Remember, this is the brainstorming phase right now. And then when you're all done, we're going to help you formulate the I help ABC, do, right? I help service-driven leaders to structure their life and health so that they can make great money and spend time with their family and friends without compromising their health. Most people think the problem is their business, but the truth is what they are really missing is structure and a community that goes against the trends. So maybe for you, it's I help entrepreneurs and I help lawyers manage their IT so that they can spend more time, so that they can make more money without compromising the confidentiality of their clients. Most people think the problem is their assistant who doesn't know how to do IT. But the truth is what they're really missing is a strong IT outsource. I just made that up, guys. But my point is that this is how this works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to file, make a copy. We're going to go, nope, I'm going to go to this one.
And also, can you give permissions to the last one? Because it said to ask for permission when I clicked on it.
Yeah, hold on here, guys. What is that one called? I just didn't, oh, here. We call it workshop. Okay. Nope, this one's got to get closed. This one goes here. We're going to go to okay, so now they should both be in here. And what I'll do is share. I'm going to remove this. Okay, there you go. So now you guys have both of those. So that's what it is. You're and like what's great is that you're kind of technically identityless, really, right? Outside of the direction that you're choosing to define the present moment and where your goals are. And that's your identity if you want to have one, but if you want to say so, right? And then what's cool is that like as a business coach or as whatever person you're working with, there's this cool game that you play, which is when they're sharing with them, you really can be in that heart space of connecting with what they're sharing. And it allows for you to understand and relate to the container that they're in. It's like you're inside of their home there, you know? So you can honor that. You're like, my gosh, I totally get it. I can't imagine like the most I can do is imagine what it's like to be raped at 7, you know, or to whatever is going on. And then with that same skill set that allows you into that space or relates to their business in that way. Okay, got it. I see what's going on. Your employees aren't happy with you. Okay, I got it. I see what's going right. It allows you to get them. It allows them to be heard and feel gotten. And then with the same skill set that you use to get out of that, lean out of that, kind of bring yourself back to the point in which the pen is touching the paper, you can then, because they've been heard, create anything that you want. You could either agree with it or you could say, well, you know, have you considered this? And what's interesting is that most people, they're going through life, they're living into this projection. They're living into the fears, frustrations, challenges, wants, needs, and desires that they have. And they just want to be heard. They just want to know that they're not alone, right? So if you do your work of like getting into their world long enough to really empathize with them, and then be responsible, right? Not agree, but empathize. You know, oh, I understand that how that feels for you, or you know, and then say something in which they are gotten. Like in other words, like, oh, okay, I got it, get it. Maybe even say that. Okay, I got it. I got your world to the best that I can. Is there anything that's missing? They'll eventually stop speaking and they'll be like, okay, yes, now there's nothing more for me to say. I get it. And then from there, you have the opportunity to invite them in. And sometimes people go their entire lives without ever really being heard. Their whole life, they never once feel heard. And they're like literally like they're on your call and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. And you just got to be like, I got that. Okay, great. Container. Okay, great. Container. Okay, great. Container. Okay, great. Container. Okay, great. Now we're back here where there's nothing. What kind of action do you want to take? Let's put all that in one container. And you do that linguistically. Got it. I hear that that's a concern. I got you covered. I got something special for that. Oh, I hear that that's a concern. Got it. Okay, great. Is there any other concerns? Anything else we should talk about? Because I have a great system that's going to help you out with that. But I want to make sure that I've heard everything. And eventually they'll hit that empty space. And now they're present, maybe for the first time. And that's where you go, boom, give them definition, give them a language to stay there, give them a container for that emptiness. You'll see, guys, all I'm doing is I'm giving you language to find your way back here. Cool? Now I expect for you guys to go out and multiply. No. What's going to happen is your wife is going to come home and she's like, this asshole cut me off. You'll be like, okay, I get it, honey. How was your day? And she's going to be like, well, it was pretty good, you know, or whatever. All right. Any further questions? You guys see how this all ties in? This is marketing magic. This is mindset magic. This is manifesting magic. This is mission driven. And it's going to make the biggest difference for you as long as you bring it into action, as long as you take action. All right, great. Get out of here and go do something fun. Go play the game. I love you guys. Have a great day.